Hello everyone. My name is Elise. Welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing so good today. We are going to be going over my June TBR. I always have to think of the month again, even though I know going into the video what month it is. I like freeze, but it's my June TBR. Wild that after June we will be halfway through the year. So let's go ahead and get into the books that I'm planning to read for June. Like usual, you know the drill. We're going to talk about the ones that I'm pretty certain I'm going to read first, and then I'll get into some of the maybes. This month is a little bit unique because I have a good chunk of books for videos, and then we'll just get into it. Let's not get into it now. So first chunk are the ones I'm pretty certain I'm going to read. And this will get into some of the books that I'm doing for video. In June, I'm planning to do a video where I read and vlog some of the books that my mother-in-law has sent me throughout the years. Most of them she recently sent me. There's one oldie but goodie in there. My mother-in-law I've talked about before. She often sends me books, which is lovely. She tends to send me ones that she reads herself and then really enjoys and will pass them along to me. Her taste in reading, I would say, is a good split between thrillers and historical fiction. I think those are probably the genres that she reads the most. She can feel free to correct me if she would like to correct me. But I think those are the two genres that she reads the most, and thus the two genres that she sends me. And while I don't read a ton of those genres, I do tend to really enjoy the ones that she sends on to me. I'm going to be reading 4 books for that video, and we will go over them now. So these are pretty certain I'm going to read them because I'm going to be reading them for that video. The first one is one of the thrillers. It's The Last to Vanish by Miranda. This one is published by Scribner, and this one I really don't know much about. I'm assuming it's a small town domestic thriller because that's what Miranda does. She sent me a couple Mirandas in the past. I haven't read all of them, but I have read a couple, and the 2 that I have read, I did enjoy. One of them was a YA, can't remember the name. Can't remember the name of the adult one either, but I read one adult, one YA. So hoping that I will also like this one. This says that it's a gripping and propulsive thriller about a string of vanishings in a mountain resort town. Okay, so I think I remember what this one is about. So this follows Abigail, who owns an inn in the town where there has been multiple vanishings, and then a journalist comes to the town to try to investigate, and the journalist themselves goes missing, and then Abby gets roped into the investigation. So that's all I need to know. I try not to read the full blurb on thrillers just in case it spoils something. So that is The Last to Vanish. Very excited to get to this one. The other thriller that I'm going to be reading for that video is a very popular one at the moment, and that is Wrong Place, Wrong Time by Gillian McAllister. Or is it Gillian? Gillian McAllister? And this one has speculative elements. So this follows a woman who one day is looking outside her window at her home and sees her son get into a confrontation with somebody else, and her son kills that person. And when she goes to bed that night, she wakes up at the start of that day again and is trying to figure out what the heck is happening. I know she progressively moves further and further back in time, and I think it's trying to look at like the butterfly effect. She's trying to figure out how her son got there and how to change it. I've heard really great things, and this sounds very interesting, not like a thriller I've read before, so I'm very excited to get to this one as well. So 2 thrillers in the mix for that video. And then we have another new one that she just sent me, and that is Lessons in Chemistry. This is by Bonnie Garmus. This is published by Doubleday. I should say this one's published by William Morrow. So this is a historical fiction, again, very popular right now. And I think this is about a woman who is in the 50s. Does this take place in the 50s? No, this takes place in the 60s. And she is a scientist, but is struggling to find a job as a scientist. So she gets a job doing food science and has like a cooking show. And I think it's talking about feminism. I think it's talking about the sexism of that time. Yeah, I think this will be really good. I'm doing a buddy read of this one with one of my friends, Kat Reads, who's over on Instagram that I've talked about before. I'll link her Instagram down below. But yeah, we're gonna buddy read this together, which I think will be a great experience. She's such a great buddy reader. She always sends lots of notes when we check in that are really interesting. So I will probably be reading this slowly throughout the month in order to kind of follow the buddy read with them and give you updates along the way. So that is Lessons in Chemistry. And then the second historical fiction for that video, because I figured I'd read 2 thrillers, 2 historical fictions. And this is the one that has been on my TBR the longest, I think, of what she sent me. So to my mother-in-law, I deeply apologize that I have not read this yet, because everybody loves it. But it is The Nightingale by Kristin Hannah. Everybody knows and loves historical fiction about World War II, following 2 sisters who take kind of drastically different paths and are thrust into different circumstances regarding the war. I know that this is also getting made into a movie, which I'm very excited about because it has Dakota and Elle Fanning, real life sisters, playing the sisters in this book, which I think is just fabulous. So I want to be able to watch that movie, and I've been wanting to read this for so long. I did start this back in the day, but then put it down for whatever reason. Not that I wasn't enjoying it, but I put it down, so I haven't fully read it, and I plan to rectify that. So we will be reading The Nightingale as well. This is published by St. Martin's Press. So those are the 4 books that I'll be reading for that video. Okay, so the last book that's sort of in the for certain category is a book that I'm reading for work, for a little book club. Now, typically I don't include any books that I read for work in my videos because most of the time they're very clinical. It wouldn't make sense, like people wouldn't be interested in them. But this one I think is more publicly useful, I suppose, and that is Ejaculate Responsibly. It says A Whole New Way to Think About Abortion by Gabrielle, Blaire. So this one is published by Workman Publishing, and I think this one is exactly what it says in the title. It's a nonfiction, obviously, and I think it's specifically talking about why abortion is a men's issue as well. So yeah, it's very short. Reading it for work, excited to be able to have conversations with some of my coworkers around this, and that is Ejaculate Responsibly. Okay, so you may have noticed that all of those books are not translated, and if you've been around for a while, you know that 1, I just love reading translated fiction, and 2, I have a couple reading goals around translated fiction that I still need to stay on top of. So the rest of the books that I'm going to be showing are all translated options that I can read in between all of these ones that I need to get through. Let's go ahead and go over them. The first one is one that I've had for a little bit, at least 6 months, and that is The Employees. This is by Olga Ravn, and this is translated from the Danish by Martin Aitken and published by New Directions. This is the hardcover copy. I do love the paperback copy more, but such is life, you know, you win some, you lose some. So this one is a science fiction novel that is all written in statements. So for example, it will look like that. So it'll state like statement 33 and contain that statement. So it's very vignette-y in that way. And yeah, I've heard this one is wild, but also that a ton of people love it. So I'm very excited about this. There's a possibility, so I'm filming this right before the end of the month. There's a possibility that I might pick it up this month and potentially finish it. Who knows? But it's on the TBR for next month. If I get to it sooner, yay. So that is The Employees. Next one, we have No Edges. This is an anthology collection of a bunch of short stories translated from Swahili to English. So lots of different authors and translators in this one. I do believe that this is speculative in nature somewhat. From the blurb on the back, it's talking about African futurist visions, it's talking about spaceships. So who knows what's in store here, but I'm very excited. I've loved all of these Calico editions in the past, as you know, because this is published by Two Lines Press and is in that collection. So very excited to get to this. It's also very slim. You'll notice that a lot of these translated ones are slim for this month because I want to make sure I can actually read them in between all the other chunksters that I'm doing. Next up, we have Yesterday. This is by Juan and Emar, translated by McDowell from the Spanish. This is also published by New Directions. Very interesting cover. And I have heard from someone commented down below, who was it? Was it Joe Smith? Joe, was it you? Tell me down below, that they said this was very weird and didn't necessarily love it. So we will see what I think about it. And this follows a man who is wandering around the streets trying to kill time, and he starts seeing a lot of very weird, interesting things. So it talks about wanders into a public square where a man is guillotined for a crime. He goes to the city's zoo where an ostrich swallows a lion whole, right? Stuff like that. So it's gonna be very weird. So we'll see how I get on with it, but I'm very excited to try it out. So that is Yesterday. And then lastly on the TBR is My Annihilation. This is by Fuminori Nakamura, translated from the Japanese by Sam Bett, published by Soho Crime. This one I got very recently. I think maybe I got it last month if I remember. And this is a crime novel, but I've heard that it's very interesting. So I know that some parts I think are in the second perspective. So it's like talking about it as if you would be committing the crime, which I think is interesting. But overall, the thing that drew me to this book is it says on the back that it's exploring this idea of what transforms a person into a killer and really trying to pull that apart, which I think is just so fascinating. I don't watch or listen or read a lot of true crime, but I think that question does have some merit in trying to understand, and I think I like it better in fiction than nonfiction. I'm very excited to get to this. Can't wait. And that is the official TBR for the month of June. Now, you might also notice that I didn't put a Sherlock Holmes book in this month. I very well might get to one, but I'm not gonna put it in the TBR because I don't know for sure if I'm gonna have time to get to one in the month of June, so that has potential. But yeah, these are the books that I'm gonna be reading in June. I hope you read along with me if you're interested in any of these, but please let me know what you thought of these books. I can't wait to get into it, and hopefully it will be a great reading month. So I'll see you all next time. Bye.